Hey folks, it's Dennis Gray, show number 158 of the Australian Rock Show. As always, thanks for listening in. However you listen in, we appreciate your ongoing support of the podcast. Now, if you're a long-time listener of ours, or indeed a fan of Australian underground rock and roll, then Tony the Kid Robertson is a musician who you'll no doubt be aware of. With a reliable, rock-solid bass sound, the Kid has long been respected by his peers and music fans alike, and with good reason. Tony is probably most well known from his time in the Hitmen and also the New Christs, two bands who, along with other outfits such as Wasted Daze, the 31st, the Screaming Tribesmen, and of course, the Naked Lunch, helped to form part of Tony Robertson's rock and roll story. Tony's name was one which we jotted down when first piecing together this podcast some years back, and with the recent news that the Naked Lunch have a new album due soon, I decided to get him on the phone for a long overdue chat. We will hear the interview with the Kid straight after some tunage to get us in the zone, lifted off their wonderful self-titled album released 3 years back. Here are the Naked Lunch with When You Were Mine. Tony, it's Dennis from the Australian Rock Show. How are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Very well. Mate, so great to finally get you on the podcast. I've wanted, to look over your rock and roll story for some time. A journey that began in Brisbane in the 1970s, and it's a trip that is tied to many great bands, and we will get to some of those. But the Naked Lunch, very much your baby, who you formed in the mid-1980s, are about to release new product, their second album, which seems an obvious place for us to start. Can we talk for a moment about the upcoming Naked Lunch album, the band's second since that self-titled release from 2019, and that is, by the way, an album which more people need to hear. How did this new one come about, and what's the backstory to the new album?
Thanks, mate. Well, the backstory is that, when COVID first hit Melbourne, I was up in Sydney and we were just doing the final rehearsal before going to book the studio to do the album, because already had the songs and they came together nice and quickly, with this band normally does. So, as soon as we got an opening, we went for it. I mean, crazy us, or me, I booked it. What was it? 36 hours and 13 songs, mate, straight from the Saturday through to the Thursday. It was just, and then we played a gig on the Sunday, which was great fun. We did the first album. We had to relearn that again. We hadn't played in 2 years. The catalyst for it really is just the amount of songs that I suppose as a band, as a collective, we've got, not just mine and Stephen's, because Stephen Beeves and I, he's been in the lunch, with me since pretty much after the first single was released. And has been a huge help and assistance and co-songwriter on most of the stuff I do. I always run it past him and give him more verses than he needs. Anyway, we had more than enough, and so we went in, we did it. It's done. We had a few... drama queen moments for us all. Well, not all of us, but a few of us, I think. It was pretty funny, but I think it really helped the album. We went back to where the first one was done because it was so magical the first time, and, I didn't know if we could capture it again. I just got them tonight, actually, only about 15 minutes ago. I just got the mixes come through from Sydney, from Jeff Lee, the little master up there at Denver Studios. So we went in, we did it. I've been giving direction to Jeff via email and listened to a few things, and I reckon it should be out ready to go in 2 months with all the artwork. That's on its way. And it's just a collection of, again, songs that work together like we thought the first album did. It's very... I wouldn't say very different, but it's a bit darker, and it's got a lot more variety than the first one. In saying that, if you like the first album, you love this one as well. Well, we do anyway. That was the catalyst. And originally the band together because of Tony Gibson calling me at 4:00 in the morning. He listened to some old tapes and he said, we've got to record, we've got to release these. And I'm like, yeah, sure, mate, no worries. Thinking, and I'll call you tomorrow morning, no worries. So I called him. It was the afternoon, I think, by the time he answered the phone. But he said, no, I don't want these put out like this. I want to record them properly. I want the lunch to get back together. I'm like, And this was just, this was like at the end of the Hitmen tour, and it was like, well, yeah, I suppose so. There's an avenue of time. Let's do it.
Okay.
So we went ahead, and that's how it started. And the second album was kind of ready to go. We decided between the songs, that's the first album, that's probably the second album. And then we had, as always, we liked our covers in the Naked Lunch. And, we added a couple of covers, and there's the second album. The third album's all ready to go as well.
Wow.
We like to be ahead of ourselves.
So you mentioned somewhere around July, August for this second album. Have you got is there a tentative title yet or not yet?
There's tentative title at this stage, but I haven't run it past all the boys yet.
Keep it close to your chest. That's okay. That's okay.
It's all right. I don't know. Chuck it out there. It's probably I'm leaning towards Real Gone.
Yeah.
And the artwork and everything kind of lends itself to that. But, as a collective, we'll have a final say. But the boys, I showed them the artwork and they like the idea. And so I'll be saying it's about 80% okay to say, yeah, Real Gone. And, of course, that song Real Gone will be on there.
Nice. Now, if I may, I do wish to go back and talk about, the album from 2019, and I am going to read directly from a review my brother wrote at the time of release, as he says it far better than I could. Yeah, this was such a wonderful album, and not enough people were aware of it, so I'm prepping them to make them aware so that they're going to be on board for this upcoming one. So the Naked Lunch have released their debut self-titled 14-track album, and it's a winner. The album opens in a big way with the unadulterated garage punk of Crying Shame. Lots of melodic hooks and fierce guitar. Melting follows suit and is a big tune, littered with singing guitar harmonies, infectious choruses, and melodic sensibilities abound. Great power pop, and in an era when the concept don't exist no more, radio friendly. When You Were Mine is another highlight and has hit single written all over it. Yep, I know it's a Prince tune, appearing originally on his 1980 album Dirty Mind, yet this cover is sublime. Searing heavy pop with hard-edged guitars and a sing-along chorus. If you didn't know any better, you'd swear that this could have been a Hitmen tune from 79. That's a fine thing, folks. What we have here are super upbeat tunes with a ton of melody, big choruses, killer guitars and harmony vocals. This is a complete pop package with enough 60s garage punk throwbacks to appeal to the purists, yet with a contemporary feel to appeal to pop pundits of all ages. I think he really, really said it very well, and I think that if the new album is going to be anything like that, it's going to be something pretty special and something which many of us are waiting to hear.
Yeah, well, I mean, that review was Cole got it, which is, I love it when, people get it. Naked Lunch, I mean, the whole idea of the band was for songwriters and to be a pop band.
Yeah.
And write pop songs. And, not just pop songs, be a bit adventurous, but mainly a pop band and with that edge. And which is, what I always, I've always loved. And the big harmonies, I love the big harmonies and things like that. So, the new album's very much of the same vein. The Lunch are the Lunch. We can't help ourselves. If I hear, Murray has really taken over a great role as, backing vocal specialist and coming up with fantastic ideas. So, fantastic review. I mean, the big guitars. And the other thing too, which the whole band, as you can probably tell, is very, very passionate, but we always play to the song. So it's what we think the song would like, not what just, we should make this heavy or we should do that. What's the song lend itself to? What do we like about the song and what do we want to do with it? And I don't know, Cole got it. When I read it, it was just like, oh my God, he's been in my head. But anyway, yeah, fantastic, really nice words, and please thank him, for me. It was, yeah. And I know the boys in the band just went, oh my God, is it that good? We thought it was. So yeah, it's lovely to hear other people liking it. Yeah, seems to be a slow burner, which is what I said I thought it would be. It'd be something that would be more word of mouth, and it would take a while for people to cotton on. I mean, let's face it, we're not young anymore. So yeah, although the kids go, I play it through to my kids, and they're just like, oh God, you guys have got more energy than most bands we listen to. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I won't say any more than that.
You'll lead me down a path about modern music.
I don't want to go there.
Which I don't want to go there.
No, we don't want to go there.
No. You just mentioned Murray, and it's a pretty formidable lineup in the Naked Lunch. You've got Steve Beeves, who you mentioned on vocals, has long had a great voice. Tony Gibson on guitar, and your long-time engine room partner Murray on drums and vocals. Great vocals as well, strong vocalist, and all wonderful musicians who bring so much to the band's overall sound, don't they?
Oh, well, that's the thing. I mean, one of the reasons we're a four-piece is that as a band, as musicians, yeah, that's all we need. Anything else, I think, gets a little too cluttered. And I just want to bring the musicianship to the fore. When it's required, when it's needed, And I mean, Tony Gibson, he was, he was the original, one. He did the first single we did back in '86. And we were about to do the Things Grow EP, but he got poached by Jeremy into the Fishermen. And I don't blame Jeremy at all. And, Tony was offered a tour and all that stuff. So off goes Tony. So, we had studio time booked. And, Tony still says, he said to me, why did I do that? I said, well, mate, you got offered, to play with Jeremy. I said,
sure.
And stuff. So, all fantastic musicians. And, Murray, Murray's my other half, I mean, I don't think it's just if I need a drummer,
powerhouse.
It's always Muzz, and he's in my head. I mean, we've played together for so long, and I've known him since he was 14.
Yeah.
So it's the Shep brothers. So it's just one of those things where we finish each other's sentences and don't even have to talk to each other. And I can be out the front there doing my crazy stuff. Murray can do something he's never done before, and him and I do it together. It's just one of those wonderful connections you don't get very often.
No.
And once you get them, it's just gold. I've had it a few times. I've been a very incredibly lucky bass player over all my time, I must say. So the old Muzz.
Can I ask? You've spent the past few years, obviously, with Hitmen DTK, lots of touring. You've also recorded a couple of mini albums during that time period as well. The Hitmen catalogue obviously makes up much of their live set too. When you step away from that and then immerse yourself in the Naked Lunch, is there more weight on your shoulders when you do that?
I suppose as a songwriter, because trying to keep the song to what I thought it should be, there's a little bit that way. And I suppose because I started it, and like you said, I started the band and it's my baby, and Muzz says it's my baby and stuff. I suppose it is, but I've always looked at a band as a collective. I mean, any band that I've had where it's been ruled with an iron fist, I find very difficult to stay around in because everyone's opinion and ideas are valued and should be valued. But just a little bit, I find it harder in one way because I'm tied to the microphone with a lot more backing vocals than I am with the Hitmen.
Okay.
Simply because the songs are poppier and there's a lot more hooks. So that makes, when I want to jump around like I like to do, as you probably know, it makes that a little bit difficult. That's probably the hardest thing.
Okay.
But, and choosing the songs. I mean, giving your babies to people and saying choose, it's really hard. And, you think, oh, this will get through. No. Oh, okay. All right. Why? Oh, okay. Fair enough. Okay. I understand. Don't worry. Put that on the back burner. I'll go and work on that one again. And I think that's what makes the Lunch, maybe that first album and what we think is the second album even better is, we really do crunch down. We had 80 songs to begin with to choose from, and we had to whittle that down to, we couldn't get below 35. So, and hence 2 albums were born. And hence we did so many tracks because, they're short songs and we thought value for money for people, and we just want to get the songs done and out there and just play as much as we can and have some fun while we still can.
Love it, mate. If we can, let's go back to your early days. You were born and raised in Brisbane, correct?
I was born in Maryborough, but raised in Brisbane, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Maryborough up to Queensland, yeah.
Quite a general question, mate, but what was your gateway into music and why the bass guitar?
Gateway into music was definitely my grandparents and all their Perry Como and Elvis and Dean Martin records. Love the Deans. Bit of Frank, all that type of stuff. They were always dancing. My granddad was a vaudeville singer, which I never knew until after he died.
Wow.
Because I didn't know where I got this musical interest. I don't know, I went to Catholic schools and the nuns found I had a gorgeous angelic voice. So until the voice dropped, I was, singing my little heart out and spending my lunch times, doing scales and all that type of stuff with the piano teacher. And then I kind of got, I didn't want to know about it, and except for music, I got right into music. I was fortunate enough to earn a heap of money when I was young because I was working at a brickworks, believe it or not. Back then in Joe days, mate, you could be 12 and get paid a man's wage. So I was doing man's work and getting that and walking down to the record shop and saying, here's $50 and give me 20 records. And that was my thing at school as well. People kind of, besides sport, Tony's right into music. And then one day I found Rocking Horse Records. And after a couple of weeks of spending my hard-earned cash there on such classics as REO Speedwagon Live, double live album, I think it was, and anyway, down that road, that real American kind of, I was right into that. Wonderful man, one of the greatest drummers I've ever had the pleasure to play with, Bruce Anton, worked there and just said, hey, Tony, mate, look, do you mind if I put something on for you? And, and there's no one in the shop and, because this stuff's shit. And I went, yeah, go for it. So what does he put on? And I bet you can guess it's the opening. He just puts on Radio's Appears. So my life changed from then. Bruce then just took all those records back and then educated me. I had friends playing in bands. Mick McGew was playing. I had other mates. I used to go to their, not to mix, but to these other guys' rehearsal, and just kind of one day the bass player didn't show up and they taught me some notes. And at 15, I begged and begged for my birthday for a bass. So I got a little 3/4 scale SG and I started to learn that. Went to one lesson with a wonderful teacher who just gave me one lesson and just said, well, the notes. Okay. Practice your heart out, play with everyone you can, and I'll give you one tip. Just don't copy people, just get your own style. And it went from there. I just had a very lucky kind of things just fell into place. I started playing in this with my mates. in a rehearsal room that Bruce, again from Rocking Horse Records, said, "Oh, we've got rehearsal rooms upstairs. You can rent one of those." And I was sitting there waiting one day, and Bruce walks up, and Survivors had done their first single, and the legendary Brisbane Survivors, with Jimmy Dixon, of course, on bass. One of my bass heroes. Used to listen to them rehearse next door all the time, and I was waiting, and he walked up the stairs, and he saw me, and he said, "Hey, you want to record a single?" I went, "What?" And he said, "Jim's left to go overseas, and we need a bass player, and we're booked in." Okay. And I said, "Oh, yeah, I'd love to. Great." And he said, "Okay, I've been listening to you. I think you can do it. Get in here now." So it all went from there, mate. I then went in and did my first single at 16, and then Bruce organised for Terry Wilson from Wasted Daze to come up and get him and I to go back down to Sydney. So last day of school, I hopped in a cab, went out to the airport, got my first flight down to Sydney, and
wow,
on we went from there.
Great stories. And you're reading my mind. We're going to get to some of this stuff, but you attended St James Christian Brothers College with both Mick and Chris Welsh, correct?
Yeah.
Pretty formidable trio of school friends, I might add. Looking back,
Yeah. When you look back, and I mean, Mick had used to live like a stone's throw from the back of the school gate.
Yeah.
We had free periods and things like that. So Mick's place, he used to play Hendrix non-stop and play his guitar with it, and then we'd go back to school and all of that. Mind you, I wasn't a musician then; I was just listening. So
okay.
And Welshie was like just this unbelievably a drummer who could, at the age of 14, could have been playing in any major rock band. He was just that
just
good.
had it.
Just at it, and So, and then Chris left at junior. He went off to become a chef. Mick and I stayed on, and but we kept in contact with Chris because we were mates. And it kind of just fell in together. So
you mentioned, you're hanging out at Rocking Horse Records. Are you seeing bands as a teenager?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Look, again, Bruce. I mean, it just changed my life. So
Bruce Anthem very much a mentor to you, wasn't he?
Incredibly. I mean, when he just gave me, he had the biggest record collection I'd ever seen at that time. When you've got 2 rooms full of friggin' wall-to-ceiling friggin' records, it's just like, what the? And the man was just obsessed, and he knew everything. And as a drummer, he was a wild man, and he just got me to, no, you got to be like this, and you got to do that, and he listen to this, John Entwistle, the Who was just his band and the Kinks. So I was just immersed and just given this like, well, if you're up to it, you can do it, and I was playing with my fingers as well, and I did up until the Hitmen. It was pretty different, I suppose, is the word. I think Rob Younger said you can't do that when he first saw us play. Well, our first gig that we played with Wasted Daze in Sydney, I didn't know he was in the crowd, and he just came up and said that no one can play like that with fingers. It's impossible.
Wow.
And Clyde was there, and Clyde's like, yeah. I didn't know who Clyde was at that stage. And I was just, how do you know it's Rob? Jaw was dropped. I couldn't answer. I didn't know what to do. I just said, thank you. It was, and I used to wear the bass up really high. I was like real Brisbane muso territory, mate. And Bruce just changed me, I met the Ramones, played pinball with the Ramones because he got me. I went down to see the Ramones, and I went down for sound check and things like that.
That was one of my questions, because I know that they played Festival Hall in Brisbane in 1980, supported by Midnight Oil and local Brisbane band The Lemmings. But were you at that one, or you saw him in Sydney?
No, I saw him at the Brisbane one.
Okay, that was Brisbane. Yeah,
it was in Brisbane, and there was this huge pinball parlour type thing, a time zone, but not whatever, right around the corner. So I'd gone down and listened to outside to the sound check, and I didn't have tickets because, at that stage. And anyway, I was playing and I was racking up a record score, and next thing I know, I had a couple of Ramones, which I didn't really cotton on until after I finished the game. And then I played pinball, and then I got free tickets and for me and a couple of my mates, and went and saw the Ramones, and then I saw them when down at the Gold Coast. Went to that one with Brad, Mr. Shepherd, because that was just we got tickets for that. Again, just a blessed life. I was just there. It was just weird.
Wow, the pinball story is great. I hadn't heard that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I don't tell too many people because it's like and I actually did have a T-shirt from Joey, but
nice.
It was shattered. It was worn on stage. It did its purpose, but in hindsight, I wished I had probably kept it away and everything. But yeah. I mean, Bruce changed my life. I got to see the Saints up in there, up at the rooms, the famous rooms where they'd have people call it a gig. It wasn't a gig. It was a party, and they played. They rehearsed, and it's what Survivors did. I mean, Survivors, seeing Jimmy Dixon play the bass again, I just rediscovered, all this stuff about music. And it was just, Bruce Anton was my mentor for 2 years. And Peter Mengiday from Helmet was in there as well. And it was just, a golden age for me.
So is that the time period? Is that the time period, Tony, where your nickname of the Kid originated when you're in the credits? No. That actually came. Really, it came from. I forget his name, but he was the keyboard player in Iggy Pop's band, and it was when I was supposed to take over at around about halfway through the tour with Steppenwolf. And the keyboard player was the keyboard player in Toto. Ended up being in Toto. And anyway, when I used to hop up at the rehearsals, sound checks. And when I hopped up the first one, after Warwick had shown me a few tricks of the trade for the songs, God, I needed that. I had no idea on what the hell he was playing until he showed me. It was just like, what are you doing there? And oh my God. Oh, okay. That's really cool. And, fantastic bass player, one of my heroes, and all around nice guy as well. I got up and did a few songs, and that's when the keyboard player went, oh my God, he's a kid. You got a little kid. And then he can start playing now. God, sounds better than Warwick. And Warwick's gone, I think so. Yeah, he's much more into it, and I think he's got it. So, Warwick was like, I can take an early break and go on holidays before I start work, because he was leaving to start his job at Disney, a job he just couldn't refuse. That was the only reason he was leaving the Hitmen, was Disney Animated Studios was starting up, and he was offered a great job. So, as an artist, it was just like, wow. And he said to me, listen, I wouldn't be leaving except for this is what's happening. And, hey, enjoy the ride, man. And, went from there. So Great
that's
stories.
where I got the name.
Okay.
And Johnny reminded me of that because someone else had told me some other story that maybe Rob Younger had given it to me earlier at a party. But
so it's good to clear that up. I'm not a musician, but I do know that throughout most of your career, I guess since around, is it 1980, you've played a very unique Fender Stingray Mark II, one of only six.
Yeah, I actually got it on that tour.
Okay, one of only 6 in the world, I believe, and something you acquired from.
Four. Only of 6, correct.
Okay.
Sorry, mine's number 4, and it is only one of 6, actually made by Leo. And because Steppenwolf had was it Steppenwolf? No, sorry, I had got it on the E. No, it was the Steppenwolf.
I thought I'd read where you said it was from a session player in Iggy Pop's band, who gave you that.
Yeah, but that was I had the. When did I get it? It was one of those. One was Steppenwolf. That was 80.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, so it would have been. No, I had to get a better bass. I was told that, so it would have been the Steppenwolf tour,
okay.
And there's a bass player from that, and I just got it wrong. It would have been that for sure, and he needed money to see his girlfriend in Hawaii, and he hated the bass that he was supposed to try out and give feedback. So, Johnny made a deal, and I bought it off the tour, and that baby's been with me ever since.
Mm.
Yeah,
no, it's as much a part of your image, for a number of years as anything else.
I've never played a better one, and I'm, and look, different bass players, different things, whatever, and it was completely unusual, to be using that, but it was just found out only a few years ago the reason why it was sounding like it did. He built into it what. They have the power pots on them, the bass boosts, right, on them. Now, normally they go up to around about 100. Now, when my bass was playing up about 6, 7, 8 years ago, something like that, I took it to a guy, and he said, well, the reason is you've been used to blow up and a lot of amps and set speakers on fire is this is 1,000. I just went, you're kidding. So to replace it, he had to contact retired guys from Fender from the time, and there were only 3 left. So he put one in. There's one with this guy in America, and the guy who fixed it from the repair shop here in Melbourne, he's got it as well. He's got the other one. And then he found out for me that there was only another one left. Or something, and there's only two of those left, and
wow.
Mine got a stamp of number 4. So
love it.
I didn't know that, but it explains a lot. Explains the expense I had. I used to blow up a lot of amps. Now we know why, and it's I don't know. I had to leave it during COVID in Sydney, and it was like. I left my child, my little baby.
Yeah,
and I've got.
I saw
kids,
the posts on your Facebook page.
Yeah,
you'd also played early on. You'd also played a Rickenbacker, correct? What that didn't feel right?
No. It was a Rickenbacker copy.
Okay.
And I loved the Rickenbacker.
Right.
And I would have loved. And if it hadn't have been for the Hitmen, it just wasn't the the Rickenbacker for the Hitmen. Just not quite there, and because it was a copy, it just And I had it until I got run over on one time by the roadies, or stolen or something. They said it got run over. I never saw it anyway. It disappeared. But look, it was just a copy. It was a Hoffman. It was the second bass I'd ever had. I got it when I was 16 or something, or 17. And a copy of a copy of a copy. But it was a Ricky. So,
sure.
That's why I got it. And, I still love Rickies to this day. But, with my beast, as I call her, I just can't go past her.
Love it.
Just plug it straight in and off she goes.
Mate, let's move forward a bit. You mentioned the credits before, and they in 79 they released a 7-inch titled "It's You," backed with Wasted Daze, and then you mentioned you relocated to Sydney and are gigging with Bruce in Wasted Daze. I know there was a lot of gigging during your first stint in Sydney. Sometimes you'd be doing 2 or 3 gigs a day. Back when most pubs had live music. I mean, how do you look back on that time period?
Back then, where there were 4 pubs on a corner, you had 4 different bands playing at the same time.
Yeah.
And it was all free.
Yeah.
It was just Darlinghurst and all that area was just this melting pot. And in fact, not just there, but I mean, that was like the real cool area. But the whole of Sydney, wherever you went, there was just music everywhere. And I'd come from Brisbane, which was cover band, or Queens, they're cover bands. Everywhere, cover bands. Well, no, not in Sydney. Mostly original, and just music everywhere. So you could just, Wasted Daze. Terry Wilson had his own PA and truck. I mean, in fact, we played with the Forest Brothers. Here's another little antidote. We played with the Forest Brothers for 3 months every Saturday night out at the Manly Vale Hotel, who just changed their name to In Excess and became somewhat of a big band, I heard. I mean, Michael was 17, I was, same age or roughly, and it was all kind of, we Wasted Daze, we were playing at least 6 days a week, sometimes mostly 7, at least on the weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sundays, probably 3 or 4 shows, sometimes more, and you could do it.
Yeah.
It was just go out, do a 45, and all that. And there were enough gigs to do. And it was fantastic. I met John Hoey there. I was staying, and Kingsey. I was staying at their place. That's how I met them in the first place. And Hoey actually joined Wasted Daze to play sax and keyboards near the end. I was just completely immersed, and, Terry Wilson was living with the Mentals, Mental as Anything, just when Nips was just taken off.
Okay.
So, and it was just, and I mean, Terry was much older than me, so I'm playing with all, Terry was like, I'm saying old, here I am as an old man now, but Terry was in his mid-30s.
It's all relative.
And I'm 16. It was, pretty, it was a bit of a, let's just go to Brisbane and immerse yourself in the Sydney inner city lifestyle. And I mean, I met all my heroes, and I met people who became my heroes, and just, I learned how to, what being a bohemian actually means, and it was wonderful. Changed my life completely.
I had read, Tony, that Wasted Daze backed up Bo Diddley at the Stage Door Tavern, which would have been around November 79. Were you a part of that event?
I believe I was. I've been told I was.
Okay. Okay.
I discovered a lot of things through Terry. There was, Tony found a lot of things new in Sydney when he visited. So yes, we played so many shows. It just became a blur. And in fact, I mean, a lot of that time becomes a blur until people like you talk to me about it, and then it's like, oh God, that's right. That's what happened. Yeah. So that would have been. And I suppose, in fact, it would be, because I do know to this day that, I've got Bo Diddley beat down 100% pat. So, yes, not from listening. The records do greatly. So, yeah.
These are great stories. I'm really enjoying them. Mate, and you relocate back to Brisbane from Sydney with Bruce, correct me if I'm wrong, which is when an early incarnation of the 31st formed. And I believe this was soon after the arrival of Ron Pino, previously from the Hellcats. Ron had answered a Singer Wanted ad for an outfit featuring yourself, Peter, who you'd mentioned, who'd go on to join US outfit alternative metal band Helmet some years later. That lineup doesn't last. However, you and Ron joined forces with your old school friends, Chris and Mick Magew, and the 31st form. Is that how it happened?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep.
Yeah, look, the story goes is that we're in Sydney. Bruce really, we were working a heap. As I said, we were working all the time, and Bruce was like, I want to go back and work in the record store and listen to my records and just play every now and again.
Yep.
And listen, we'll go back and we'll get Peter, and I've got this great singer lined up, and Ronnie Pino, and he was recommended to us by by Mort. So it was recommendation by Mort. It was like, well, we have to get him sight unseen, because we didn't end up meeting him in Sydney. He was up in Woy Woy with Warwick Fraser at that stage. Not together, but they both lived up there. And Bruce said, he's going to be up in the next month or so. Well, that didn't happen. So, yeah, we started looking for other singers, and we formed some other bands, and one of them was called the Honeybees. And, we had Mick Hadley for a little while, who was absolutely fantastic. But he had his own thing going. And then Ronnie, I thought we thought Ron had changed his mind, and then I think it was 4 or 5 months later, up on the doorstep, rocks Ron. I didn't know it was Ron. It was just a knock at the door, and hi, is this blah blah blah? And I'm looking for Bruce Anton. I said, well, he's at work at Rocking Horse Records in town. Who are you? Oh, I'm Ronnie Pino. I'm like, we've been looking for you. He said, sorry, I should have told you. Just normal Ron. That's Ron. Anyway, Ron comes in. We hit it off pop sensibility-wise. Yep. We went and did a rehearsal with Peter Mangaday and Bruce and stuff. And, Ron was... anyone who'd seen the Hellcats would tell you, Ron was always like diamond in the rough. There was something about him. Anyway, we just, he had to sing, we just did some stupid covers and Louis and things like that, Ron could sing. And I don't know, the other guys weren't that impressed. I was like, no, there's something here. And Bruce being my mentor, it was a real kind of fork in the road for the young Tony. It meant going out on his own, because I was pretty much known in Brisbane as, Bruce's bass player, not as Tony. That's just part of the thing. That's cool. Made the decision, went round, spoke to Mick. Ron loved Mick straight away because he looked like Keith Richards, and they hit it off straight away. We had a drummer called Robert Zulu, and we got Robert because we loved his last name, Zulu, and he was an old school friend as well. And I think he was playing with Mick in Night something or other band. I could be wrong. Nighthawk, Nightwind, something like that. They had, which was Mick's first band, I believe. And we had him. I think we did 1 or 2 shows, and it just wasn't working. And I said I only know one other drummer, right? Chris Welsh went round, and Ron again with his charm. Chris was like, yeah. And the 31st occurred. I mean, we all started, Mick and I and Ron started writing songs for the first time. We got a house together. We just basically, we went to strip joints and said, listen, we reckon we can get X amount of people in here if you give us Thursday nights and things like that, because we weren't known. We weren't able to get into the normal scene. So we did it the hard way. We even did our own shows at halls. We had our own little road crew. We were just self-sufficient. And that was good, I think, in a way. It was just kind of like self-immersed, at least for 12 months or so. And anyway, we started up the Silver Dollar and started writing all these songs. And then, we had people like Brad, the Fun Things come along going, wow, we love this band, Brett Myers. So we were doing bills together, and then we were accepted. We were playing with the Riptides, Dragon. We were doing all the big shows. It was great. It was like really happening. Brad joined the band in the last 6 months of the band, in fact, I'm being told that we did a demo with Brad playing piano of Igloo, which no one has, and we can't find it. But
wow,
most of it.
That'd be fantastic to hear.
Adamant. Yeah, but I don't know. It's gone forever unless someone out there in the ether listening goes.
So, and the band name, the band name, Tony, I believe was suggested by Ron, who drew inspiration from the late '60s psych rock outfit from Florida called the 31st of February. Is that the story?
I was there when he picked up we were going through as everything. You go in any store, you go through the records to see what's there. And he lifted this one up, and it was the 31st of February or something. And he went, the 31st. I like it. That's what we'll call ourselves. Yeah. So it came from that. Yeah. It was just, Ron, hey, let's do this.
So, the band are around for, I guess, a couple of years, 2 years, and I believe that around 50 songs were written, but only 4 tracks were ever recorded. Apart from that one, you've just mentioned early version of Igloo there, recorded back in early 81, and as time has proven, the strength of these songs has seen them re-recorded and live on in other incarnations. And as many of our listeners will know, there was a vinyl 12-inch of these songs released back in 2017. Time Moves Fast, a standalone. Of course, this was later, recorded and released as a single by the Tribesmen in 84. Real Gone. So again, later re-recorded by the Naked Lunch on the Things Grow EP. So Hard, which we are going to hear in a moment. That later becomes It's So Hard and is re-recorded by the Hitmen. Tony, talk me through, I guess, those songs on the 31st EP from 5 years back.
Wow. I mean, we had so many songs. I mean, Ron was just reminding me of a song a couple of weeks ago called Center of Attraction, which as soon as he said it, I went, oh, my God, yeah. And he sang it to me. I'm like, oh, that was great. He said that one was complete. He said all the lyrics were done. It was brilliant. We had a song called 7 Stone and Waiting because Ron was 7 stone and waiting. And it was just a rap ad-lib and then 7 stone and waiting. We just did stuff. We'd come up with ideas. We had a rehearsal room that was 24/7. We could rehearse. We had a venue where we had bands and people who came along who loved us trying new stuff. So we did. I mean, that's where we got, Brett used to get up and play. I mean, we used to interchange and all that. And there were other venues as well, heaps of little ones around. And songwriting, I mean, living together, it was amazing. I'd be sitting, I think the first, when I wrote Real Gone with Ron, and that may have been, I know it was my first song. I think it could have been Ron's first one. I was just sitting down on the kitchen floor playing a mix semi-acoustic, and Ron goes, "What's that?" And then comes up with the melody line Ron does when he hears something he likes. And along came Real Gone. And like when he wrote Igloo, it's all from kind of Genesis ideas and just not throwing anything away. If you think of it, if you think it's good to begin with, it probably is. You just haven't got it working just yet. And I've been working on songs for 40 years still. Does
Real Gone live on again? Is that the impetus for the title?
Okay. I kind of we did it live, and the lunch, especially this lineup with Muzz. Muzz just knows me. So I mean, and he'd seen the 31st play, Real Gone back then. So he when he was 14, so he knew the song back to front, inside out. So we've just made it our own, toughened it, and we're just kind of taken the best bits here and there. And Stephen's made it his own as well. And it's just one of those songs which, I know it's been recorded a few times, but each version is just a little bit different, I mean, it's been remastered about 3 or 4 times on compilation albums all over the world. Mm-hmm. So it's like this song that's out there in the ether. And
great longevity.
When it was on the album, I was just like, it's wonderful to see. But that was my first song, and it's still going. So It's like, whoa.
Mate, let's crank the 31st back to back. Real Gone, followed by So Hard, and then we'll talk about your move back to Sydney.
Sure, bud.
Now, Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, but is it late 81 you relocate back south to Sydney and you replace Warwick in the Hitmen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Brad left to go back to go to Sydney.
Yep.
To chase the dream. Even though the 31st pretty much, look, after 2 years in Brisbane, we'd pretty much you know, we were getting all the top supports, and we could, headlining and all that type of stuff. So I was really keen all the time to get back. And in fact, It's So Hard, which she just played, that song's actually about me. Ron trying to deal with me, and every word in that he says, you know, is exactly as I was. I was an angry young man who just couldn't wait, and off I went. And not to join the Hitmen, I went down to, you know, go back to all the people I'd met, you know, the wonderful John Hoey's and Stacey's and everyone that I'd met down there. And, Brad got the gig in the Hitmen. And then I'd gone back to Brisbane, I think, to see the family for a bit. And I got a phone. Yeah, it was my birthday, I think, or something like that. And I got a phone call from Brad saying, "Do you want to join the Hitmen?" "Well, mate, we need you back here in 2 days, so get your butt down here." It's like, oh, okay. So it went like that, pretty much.
Okay.
Just on word of mouth, because, you know, they'd heard about me and Brad suggested me, and I went. It was great. It was like, whoa. Mind you, I was told by a lot of people in the inner city scene, who I was very good and still am good friends with, you know, hey, you know, the Hitmen, and that's not the cool, you know, they're not the cool. And I'm like, yeah, but I really like them. So again, a fork in the road and fork taken. Yeah.
Early 82 from memory, the Hitmen leave WEA Records and sign with RCA, and they issue the wonderful It Is What It Is album in late 82. I'm guessing that was the first time you'd been in the studio with Klondike, and I imagine you've got fond memories of recording that album at Albert Studios.
Well, look, it was a wonderful time in the studio with Klondike and the boys. It really was. It was my first foray into the big leagues. I'd been in smaller studios and we'd done demos and stuff, you know, Damien Gerard's and other places, you know, not putting them down, but, you know, you're going into, a premier studio. The only problem was Dunlop and Brown being chosen as the producers who were doing the Mentals as Anything's album at the same time. So we were the day boys and Mentals were doing the night. So these guys were doing double shifts, and it didn't turn out as we expected. No, it didn't sound as we expected. And bits and pieces that I know Chris, when he remastered, found. You know, and in fact, they got me to stay back one night and to redo all the bass lines using a 1963 Precision, which was wonderful, you know, and everything. But I didn't know, the other boys didn't know at that stage. So, and I have fond memories. And also, look, I was pretty ill at that stage, so I was, it was wonderful, but I was also, going through a lot health-wise. Okay. Yeah.
I guess an obvious question for me is why were Bruce Brown and Russell Dunlop chosen over, say, Mark Opitz, who'd done the first Hitman record?
You tell us, man.
Okay.
You tell us. We actually had Ron Ashen was all lined up to do it, I think. I think it was Ron. Someone like that. I'm pretty sure it was Ron, was lined up to do it. But they said no, they wanted Dunlop and Brown, and they just had a few hits. So, you know, they were kind of the hot property at the time. I mean, look, don't get me wrong, they were really nice fellas and they liked the band and, you know, they really, you know, but they paired us back, you know, they were like, you know, not so much drums there. I mean, you know, telling Kingsey not to play his natural game. Yeah. So there were things like that which we all weren't happy with. I mean, there were guide vocals of Johnny's on there when we heard it. And we were on tour and we came back and the album was released.
Wow.
I mean, it was not a happy time that way. And in fact, that was with when we heard that, we got the album. We came off the tour with Brad. I was living with Brad and Brett Myers and a few other people in South Dowling Street, which was well known as a party house, believe me. And we got it and we put it on with yeah. And I just took about 30 seconds and I just looked at Brad, and I was the only one who knew that he'd been offered, to join the Gurus, and he was kind of toing and froing. Well, I just looked at him and he went on, shrugged his shoulders, and I went, I know what you're going to say, mate. You joined the Gurus because that sounds crap. And he went, yeah, that's not what it should sound like. So, it had that fallout. Fantastic songs. The playing was all there. It was just, unfortunately, the production and whatever they did with the tapes after Chris could only do so much with it. But it should have sounded heaps better. The songs, fantastic. And a lot of them Brad had brought to the team, right? And, he wasn't going to join the Gurus because it was all happening. But, there was a bit of friction, I suppose, too, as, two great guitarists. That can happen over time. And, he joined the Gurus. So that was kind of the fate from that recording. Although I listened back to that album and, there's still, there's some
great moments,
songs. Yeah.
Obviously, your friendship and working relationship with Johnny Canis goes back 40 years now. Where and when did the Kid first cross paths with Zeus?
Well, I first saw him at the Cloudland Ballroom up in Brisbane when Brad dragged me along because he's saying, "You got to see this band. You got to see this band." They'd just done the first album.
Okay. And
we're touring that, and that's the first time I saw Johnny Canis. And I saw the band, and they just blew me away. They were just like, this is just, whoa. I met Johnny kind of, when I was down in Sydney in the Bohemian little area, and then, in the band. And John's a lovely guy, and I grew up with lots of Greeks and Italians, so his family adopted me pretty much straight away. So and John and I just we've been together ever since, really. In all of these things except the Night Train when I was doing the E tour. I've been with John. So
And if listeners wish to do so, way back on show number 78, we chatted with Johnny Canis extensively. And coincidentally, I did note on Zeus's Facebook page where he complimented you in the last couple of days by naming you the best bass player he's ever worked with, which is a huge compliment.
It is. Shit, yeah. Without a doubt, He doesn't hand those out willy-nilly. I know that for a fact. We've worked together. I don't think he would have kept me around if I wasn't doing the job. But John, again, John and I on stage had a chemistry as well. So, as with Klondike and stuff, there was a chemistry. And when you get a chemistry, and also passionate, it's not as if John and I didn't have our arguments. He punched me out one night and I won't say why because what I did was disgusting, but he had every right to punch me.
Okay.
But he didn't pummel me to a pulp. He just hit me once to the ground. I learnt never to mess with John again. That
gotcha.
way. But no, and just a lovely guy, really. And there's, been so much BS said about John by some people over the years. It's a bit hard to swallow when you know what really goes on. But, John just takes it in his stride and goes, that's rock and roll, man. And it's true. I just got to learn. It's just rock and roll. We're just having fun playing music. We're not friggin', we're not changing the world.
As a side note, and you just mentioned Brad, obviously Mark Kingsmill and Brad go on to join the Hoodoo Gurus. I've always thought that if things had worked out differently, you could have been a hoodoo guru yourself, maybe slotting in when
was.
You were you? Okay, what after Clive
Almost
Bramley left?
Yeah. What happened was that it was they sacked they'd sacked Clyde. He was a really close friend by that stage. As bass players do and drummers, especially bass players. Yeah, and so I was pretty. I mean, they'd already sacked one of my best mates, which was just I couldn't believe it when they sacked Mr. Baker, but so then when they sacked Clyde, and then I got asked because and stuff, and I kind of didn't cotton on that I was getting asked when I was being asked either. I was kind of being courted. I think not courted, but Dave was checking me out. That will he fit the unit type thing, because he knew that as a unit definitely would work, but would I work personality wise? What was it? It was down to two of us, and I was just my regular partying animal self. Probably a bit of I'm into that. I like to kind of detonate things up and see what happens. I didn't get the gig, but in hindsight, I mean, they were touring, and I mean, when they were touring, it was going to be no alcohol, and they were fit and everything. And I mean, I know everyone was getting into that later, but at that stage, that was like poison to me. What? You mean I can't have a beer on stage? What? No, I'm not liking this idea at all. So, I'm not saying that, the better man didn't win, and I think it was I wouldn't have been the ideal fit, okay. I think, with Dave at that
wasn't meant to be.
Time. Not meant to be, yeah.
Before we move away, where was the video for Pay Up or Shut Up filmed?
Oh, that was near the university there. What's the main road? Parramatta Road.
Yeah.
Where it goes up to the uni. There was an old abandoned warehouse.
Okay.
And that's where we shot it. Yeah. We actually, just a quick little story. Brad and I turned up there after being up all night after playing a gig. We went to the Cardoma and stayed up all night with the assistance of many things, and we got to the shoot at 5:30, and our eyes were red. And anyway, our hairstyles and our looks, I think, in the film clip show it all. It was, it was dirty, it was fun, it was crazy. I got carpet burns from getting dragged around doing our Three Stooges act, but I felt no pain at the time. Yeah. So, it was shot there. It was good fun.
Great.
My first clip, yeah.
Random question, and maybe this is one I should have, I should ask Zeus or Klondike, but in the late 70s, early 80s, there was a new wave band from the UK, also known as the Hitmen. Did that cause any issues back then, and was there ever talk of having to change the band name?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
I know, like, in later years we've had issues with, that's why we had to change the name, but not at that stage. There didn't seem to be an issue. But at that stage, remember, you had bands like Sherba having to change their names when they went to America to, what was it, Highway or something?
Highway, yeah.
Yeah. So it was kind of like, well, you're cool to be the Hitman here. I don't know if there was an issue. To be quite honest, the business side of it, the young Robbo didn't want to know. I was like, I'm here to have some fun.
Sure.
So let's just have some fun.
Mate, as is well known by most students of Australian underground music, you joined the New Christs in mid-83 from memory due to Johnny Canis being severely injured in that horrific car crash, which puts the Hitmen on hiatus. Looking back, things were shifting quite quickly for you, weren't they? I mean, there was a lot happening over that 2-year period, wasn't there?
There was a hell of a lot. Yeah. It becomes, it does kind of mix itself all in together. It was like, you had
I was also a bass for hire. I'd play for anyone for a carton of beer or something like that. And, if they needed a bass player for a few gigs or this or that. And, the tribesmen, Chris, I think, had the idea that, for us to, while we were waiting for, I think it was for Rob to find out whether it was the French record label was going to sign us or whatever, we started doing Screaming Tribesmen shows because Mick didn't have a band at the time. So we started doing that, and Rob got the wrong impression that we were joining the Screaming Tribesmen, so that kind of fell to pieces. Unfortunately, Mark had been offered the gig in the Gurus, and again, I was just the only one who kind of knew, like in the band. He'd been offered that, but he wasn't. He was waiting for the New Christ, and as soon as that dissolved, he was off. Off he went to the Gurus. Unfortunately, the New Christ went that way. That was a really kind of just messy. God, wish there had been mobile phones at that time. You know what I mean? Because all you could do was call people on their landline or knock at their door, and if they didn't answer, they didn't answer you.
Yeah.
It was kind of like a messy time. And look, it was just one of those things where everybody was playing with everybody. It was really incestuous. You'd go and play with someone for a couple of weeks. I mean, I played in about 30 or 40 bands, from memory, I've been told. So, and not for heaps, maybe even just for one show. I think one band got together. But anyway, Rob got the wrong idea. So from that, it was like, oh, all right, well, that's kind of the end of the Hitmen, and that's kind of end of the New Christ for me. So,
as history shows, Tony, you did, that is one of the most important releases. I think, is it Like a Curse from memory on Citadel to ever come out of the Australian underground?
Yeah.
The
New
Sun
Christ,
God.
Yeah. It was with Kent and Jacomison, Richard. But I mean, I learned something really valuable actually from the New Christ, and that is that friction and discourse are not a bad thing in a band, as long as you can rein it in. The trouble is trying to rein it in. Sometimes it just rains and it pours and you can't stop it. But that friction between, there was, Chris and Kent were very different guitar styles, and so there was a little bit of friction there, but that friction just made them play so much better. And within a couple of rehearsals, there was, kind of mutual respect, and I don't know, it just clicked. It just really, really worked.
It was a hell of a lineup, though. Hell of a lineup.
Yeah, and Rob had those songs. We did some covers as well because we didn't have enough at the time to get it all together. But and Rob just kind of said, "Look, here's the chords," and the band, as a unit, we would just do it, and he'd go, yeah, or no, I want it more this way or whatever, and And then when we went into record, that was the kind of when I knew that, okay, Kingsy and I had something really, really special, because, Like a Curse was, rhythm section-wise, it's, I listen back to it and go, geez, what did I do there? I listened to Kingsy there. And that was the first take live, the two of us. And I had to just drop in the slide because they didn't like it, and that was about it. But that's when I learned that I've always tried to do from then on, and I have, it's just get the drums and bass down live, and once you got that rhythm section cooking, you just lay over the top of it. And that's what I learned from the New Christ. And I learned, aggression doesn't have to, if you hold back that aggression at times, it really works in your favour. You get this kind of, it wants to rock ahead, but you're not going to let it. And everyone, Rob, God, I've worked with, the cream of the crop. I mean, I've said it before, but I've had a very blessed career. Very varied and very blessed, and just work with, a lot of the best. So I've been very lucky that way.
Before we move away from the New Christs, I believe that some of the band's recorded work in the early 80s, the tune Waiting World, appeared in the local film Going Down. I'm fairly certain you were not on that recording, but it is a nice segue into film and indeed your acting career. Some of your recent credits, Tony, are Hamish and Andy's True Stories, Neighbours, 2019 film Judy and Punch. Have I got that right?
Yeah, man.
And I note that you have a role in Hoodlums, due for release next year.
I'm Frank the Gun Dealer.
When did the acting and theatre work enter your life?
Well, actually, that was kind of when I was younger too, in my early teens and stuff. I mean, the nuns had me on stage, from a very early age, singing and dressing up and doing all that, not so much acting. But I got into acting, and I met a friend who was used to love his mother used to take him to plays all the time, so I got to go and got into it. And then when I was in Sydney, I actually was working at the Belvoir Theatre because Bruce knew the people there. So, I shouldn't say working. I was just having fun. I was getting paid, now and again. But, just having fun. And I used to do extra work back then. And then when I got my I got medically retired off around about 7 years ago. So it was like, well, what can I do? Because I'm not allowed to work. So, I can stand, I can walk, I can talk, I can act. There we go. I'll be an extra. And from the extras come the acting work. I've done just about, most Australian shows that have been on. I've been there somewhere. It doesn't mean that I've hit the TVs. A lot of it's hit the cutting room floor. But I did get an ongoing part in, I'm going to forget the name of the series, but it was a really big series, and it was going into its third year, but it got cut. But anyway, I played a barfly. Who would have thought me as a barfly, Anyway, I used films to communicate with the bar person when they're coming around to get the drinks, and they loved that, and then said, listen, we shoot a lot of scenes in here and put you on a retainer, and every time we want you over there. And I went, yeah, you just want me there with half a beer, just looking like I've been here all day, yeah, I can do that. Anyway, it got canned, so I only got the retainer for a little while, but it got me a bit of a name and around, and I don't know. Again, just really lucky. Hoodlums, I met the writer, producer, director, and main star on the set of Neighbours, and we hit it off. He was prisoner number 1. I was prisoner number 2. So
when's that out? Is that next year, Hoodlums?
Yeah, it should be. Poor Cam, with the COVID, he's been having to shoot it. He's got huge funding from overseas for it, so he's got it, we're talking the big biggies, right, and stuff. But the poor guy's got health issues, and it's out there. He's battling through cancer, but he's been doing really well. But he was just about to do some more shoots, and he just got the crap beaten out of him, and his jaw broken, so that'll delay things. But he told me only a few weeks ago that he had Frank looking at the scene for Frank probably around August, September was when he was going to be looking at shooting it. And it's a bigger scene and all this type of stuff. So I just gotten lucky.
It's exciting though, isn't it?
Yeah, look, being on stage and acting, when you're playing the show, as far as I'm concerned anyway, you're giving a performance. There's people looking at you, and I'm a bit of a show off. I don't mind a bit of a kick on the stage when I'm playing the bass.
Naked Lunch, I might point out, have shot a couple of cool videos for Granny Takes a Trip and Crying Shame as well in recent times, which are up on YouTube for listeners to check out. It's good stuff.
Thank you. Yes. Tony Gibson's mates. They don't want their names mentioned, so I won't. But yeah. We just, again, just luck and just people liking us and saying, hey, you want to do some clips? And yeah. And I mean, they did it all for us, and we're incredibly grateful, and hopefully they're going to do the next ones for us too.
Tony, you did just touch on your time in the Screaming Tribesmen. One of the Tribesmen's strongest songs in their wonderful catalogue is the tune titled Ice. We are going to crank that in a moment. It's co-written by yourself, Mick, and also Chris Maswag. All the things that you said to him were not the same thing you said to me, but now I'm glad you set me free. You're not the girl of my dreams. You're so hip, little girl. Such a strong track. It does, of course, end up on the Tribesmen's Date with a Vampire EP. I'm making you think here, but can you recall how Ice came about?
Mick and I had the idea, and I had I think Mick had like the verse chords, or just a rough idea.
As far back as the 31st, or later than that?
No. This was when we had Kingsy and stuff when we were doing that, and I mean, Mick was just down the road, so we'd visit each other, and you always picked up a guitar and have a listen to this. You got any ideas and things like that. It kind of came together from there, and then Chris came in and added his bits and pieces. I mean, that whole, in fact, the whole Date with the Vampire EP. At that stage, Kingsy had left, and Chris Walsh was playing, and they were just booking the studio to do it. And I think it was around about 6 weeks off, or 4 weeks, or 5, something like that. Anyway, I didn't know it, and Chris didn't know it, but on the same day, we both decided, for different reasons, that our time in the Tribesmen was coming to an end, because we both didn't know until after we went outside, and I went, I didn't know you were. What's going on? He said, I didn't want to do it because, it's not fair to go and record, and then, I'm probably going to join the Died Pretty. And I said, I got reasons, and this is why. So, I'm exactly the same. Yeah. And it was kind of like, that's the thing I really loved about playing with friends and stuff, is integrity. I mean, not having someone just play and then go, by the way, I'm going to, thanks for the recording, but I'm now going to join blah, 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 and do this and do that. It came from that. And, it was a hard decision yet again, but, circumstances, I was, that was it. But look, I already had, I'd already spoken to Bob about the possibility he was roadieing for us, and, I used to jam with him and Schofield from Grooveyard all the time over at their joint. And I kind of said, hey, listen, I'm thinking of, would you be? And he's like, oh, mate, yeah. And I said, well, I'm thinking. And so, we were able to say to Mick, he was pretty, two close friends as well at the same time. It was a pretty, emotional, kind of half hour that we had saying.
Are there any,
but
Tony,
we did have someone to take over.
Are there any Robertson Madu compositions in the vaults? And if not, is there a chance that you two can write and record together again? I mean,
there's a heap in the vaults. Yeah. And,
okay.
And
Mick's long been on our. He's long been on our radar and is still releasing fantastic albums. 2019's Open Season record is fantastic. So
that's one of the best. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's some stuff. So you've got some stuff in the vaults.
Well, there's stuff that we wrote. Yeah, okay. Definitely. I think I mentioned the Centre of Attraction is one, and to be quite honest, Ron was saying, who wrote that? I'm going, I don't know. I said, it all becomes a blur, but, Mick kind of knows a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
or at least he did. I think he wrote it down. But yeah, there's a heap of stuff, and I mean, there was even talk at some stage of perhaps, you know, the 31st, especially when we were releasing the EP on vinyl, to get back together. Not that we didn't try; it just wasn't. Just, you know, Chris was he lives in Thailand, and you know, Mick's in Brisbane. I'm in Melbourne. Ronnie's down here as well. So it was like, you know, he's got the superstitions, you know, at that stage as well. So it just didn't happen, unfortunately. But yeah, they rattled off around about 20 songs I'd completely forgotten about. It's just like, oh yeah, that's right.
Love it.
There was one called Dark Street, which I just went, oh God, I forget how it goes, but I just remember it was a fantastic song, and it was only about 2 minutes long, but it was just, yeah. And Ron's going, yeah, and Nick's going, oh, I think I remember it. So, you know, Nick with his quiet way.
So
I'll have a listen.
watch Tony Robinson's Facebook page for possible release dates in the future. Who knows, folks?
Well, we have to record them, I think.
Yeah, it is time to hit the volume as we go back to 85 and crank the Screaming Tribesmen with Ice. So, Tony, when you formed the Naked Lunch in the mid-'80s, you'd already achieved a hell of a lot. I guess why the decision to branch out with a new project, and was there a vision back then about what you'd wanted to achieve?
Yeah, there was. In a way, I'm always in a way. I never have a really clear. You know, it's always kind of, oh, my gut says this. My songwriting was, let's say, wasn't really required in the Hitmen until Brad left, and then writing with Johnny, It's So Hard kind of got me going again. And so I started writing a lot, and there was no avenue really for it to go out to. I mean, there was, the Tribesmen there with Ice, but there was a heap of others. And, Peter Patterson, who was a good friend and stuff, was like, man, these are great songs. I know this guitarist. So first off, we had Dean Coulter from Decline of the Reptiles, because he had songs that didn't fit Decline. So it was that type of band, and it was supposed to be a revolving kind of, we know you're on tour for the next, 6 weeks, so we'll get Richard Bergman in, and then he's off, so we'll get so-and-so in. It was supposed to be this revolving thing. Sounded great, probably a very out-of-it idea. And it seemed to work, especially when Tony Gibson came along from ME262 and stuff, and that really gelled. Dean, it worked really, really well, but he just found it with work in two bands just too hard. And in fact, there's some fantastic songs that we wrote that I hope he'd give us permission to do in the lunch a little later on, but okay. I got to talk to him first. But yeah, and Tony Gibson came along, and I think I said before, he went off, and then tried a few others. That's when Beast took over. He was playing guitar, but he started singing and playing guitar, and then a wonderful fellow, Roger Gold, who used to be an A&R guy. I think he still was at the time, and he loved the band. And he joined, and we went on. We actually recorded a single with Rob Younger as the producer, but it never saw the light of day. And unfortunately, the tapes have. I tried to get them baked, but they didn't make it through the bake.
That's interesting. So that's after. Is that after Little Too Late?
Yeah, after Things Grow. So Things Grow was supposed to be like, it was. Studio time was booked because Sound Barrier, John Hurst, just loved the band and gave us cheap time, and kind of come in at midnight till 6 type stuff, which is, unbelievable of him. So fantastic. So we had the time. I was living with Mick, and Mick said, I said, mate, some of the songs, we did them in the 31st, or parts of, you've heard them. Would you mind? He said, I'd love to. So Mick came in. He had to go off on tour. So for Real Gone, I asked, Richard Bergman, who I'd played with in Abattoir. The band that slaughtered ABBA songs. I think the best band title I've ever come up with myself.
Nancy Keel's on there from the Party Girls as well, isn't she?
Yes. Yep. And that was through a flatmate's brother who was playing with her, and she heard the stuff and was like, whoa. And I said, well, I'd love to have a female voice on here. And she was like, yeah. And she went in and did it in, like, first take. She was just amazing. Yeah.
Before we move on, Tony, that 86 single, Little Too Late, back with Teenage Blues. From memory, there's a nice Died Pretty connection on that single too. Your old mate Ron Pino adding some background vocals, and it was produced by Brett Myers as well. Little Too Late has your punchy bass prominent throughout, but, you know, one of my favourite songs of yours is, in fact, the B-side of Little Too Late, called Teenage Blues, written by yourself and Mike Corcoran. Very evocative lyrics, and the keyboards which wash over this song are a highlight. It's fairly obscure, but back in the day when we would flip over to the B-side, that's how we did it back then, kids. And I think this one really highlights your songwriting skills. And what we're going to do, Tony, is we're going to play Teenage Blues. But, looking back, it's just such a fantastic song.
Thank you, man. Yeah. I mean, I asked Brett to produce for the first time. He was in the house, and I said he had great ears, and he was like, I've never. And I said, I think you'd be great. And he got Tony Espy, and I didn't know that Clyde used to play the organ at church when he was a kid and a teenager. So he came in, and he's LSB because of the Hoodoo Gurus at the time. We couldn't put his name on. And he played the keyboards. And of course Ronnie came in. Ron, we were still in each other's pockets. You know, I think I said we were very incestuous, very together, very kind of, what do you think of this? Oh, I've written it. Do you like it? So yeah, Ron came in, and we just did the thing with Ron as we always do.
Love it. Let's crank Teenage Blues. Tony, before we get out of here, I do wish to talk a little about modern day Hitmen DTK. As many people may know, the band reunited in 2007 with yourself, Klondike and Johnny Canis, being joined by Tony Dukic and Murray on drums. There's been reissues of the self-titled album, along with It Is What It Is and Tora Tora DTK, shows with Niagara and the St. Valentine's Day Massacre album. Obviously, you know, the local music scene is not like it was in the 70s and 80s when live music was everywhere. However, the band and indeed its rich legacy have ensured that the fan base remains strong. And some of the shows which I've seen have been packed. And the band look like, you know, they're having so much fun and relishing, you know, being back on stage. I guess, would that assumption be accurate when talking about your second stint playing out with Zeus and Klondike in Hitmen DTK?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, it was, for all of us, it was like, wow. You know, Dave Lang put together this, amazing. He found stuff we'd forgotten we'd done. So it was totally amazing, and we just thought we had to reform, at least to push it for Dave. Mm-hmm. And Chris was off Radio Birdman duties at the time. So it worked, and we didn't know what it was going to be like, and we had first rehearsal and it clicked straight away, and the band was always about having fun. I mean, it was about not just us, but everyone having fun and enjoying it, hopefully as much as we were. And if we weren't enjoying it, well then you guys probably weren't enjoying it. So it was like that. It was fantastic. And the thing that I was blown away was the not just the love, but just I don't know, being held in such high esteem by so many very knowledgeable and talented people. Was like, whoa, is it really? Oh, nice legacy. This is cool.
Rock and roll royalty, Tony.
Oh, well,
indeed.
So I've been told, It was a bit of a kind of whoa, I mean, I'd been playing with Little Murders with Rob Griffiths, I was with them for 16 years. So it was kind of like I was in a bit of obscurity and, you know, raising the family and working and, kind of back on stage like in the big leagues, as you say, you know, back to people going, wow, you guys, you know, da-da-da-da-da. It was like, whoa, this is fun. So we just kept doing it for as long as we could.
And, of course, some years back, Klondike Shoes were filled by Vince Coscuna, and the band have released some covers. I especially like the Six Pistols EP you cut, and there was an original track, Get Up, which was very cool too. Can I ask if there's a possibility of another Hitmen DTK release of original music in the future, or is that unlikely?
I hope so. Put it that way. I mean, we were told that after the first EP that we would be doing an album.
Okay.
And then we got told, we got asked to do the second one, the Elvis, Hitman Kills Elvis. And we were insistent that we at least have a single. So we got Get Up in between. And then, we were supposed to be doing the album, but unfortunately, you know, how can you say, you know, everyone in the band's getting older and health issues start to come into play. And, I mean, it was, we were promised a lot of stuff. We were having a lot of fun. I mean, you know, we were doing great supports and everything. But it unfortunately, not all the band, you know, could work and do that as well. So eventually it kind of just, okay. And then, you know, we've had plans to, you know, do shows, but unfortunately, you know, good old COVID.
So fingers crossed, maybe some original music in the future. Who knows?
There's a lot. Yeah. I mean, look, Tony Duke's got his own studio, and so does Sammy. We did the last stuff, and it really is just a matter of kind of having hey, let's do it. The material's there. But I mean, you know, John's had a really busy time of late, you know, I mean, his daughter's just got married and things like that. And the COVID just blew everything out of the water, and stuff. So, I mean, you know, Johnny hopped up on stage with us at, for the Naked Lunch on our third show, because we've only ever played 5 shows live with this lineup. And it was at our second show. And, you know, he hadn't been up for a while and he was a bit nervy. And I can tell you what, Tony Gibson said to me afterwards, it was one of the highlights of his life, because he now understands Johnny on stage. He's just a different monster. He just,
wow.
Yeah. And John got his confidence straight back. I knew that's all he needed, was to hop up in front of a few people. And I mean, it was a big crowd, and John just killed it. And actually, Steve wouldn't come out and do the next song because I'm not following that. which was probably, in hindsight, I was like, no, we've got to go out. We've got to play. You know, When You Were Mine. It's the single. It's like, no, I'm not following that. I can't follow that. So that's how good it was. And anyone who was there would attest to it. I think there's a couple of videos going around. Johnny was just Johnny. And, So, I mean, live-wise, these days, difficulties, but recording-wise, I'm hoping that, something does eventuate. But at the very worst, you know, Johnny's songs, I've said to him, you know, look, if Hitmen aren't going to do them, I want them. So send them my way, mate.
Is there,
oh, really? Yeah.
And mate, we should start to wind this one up and get out of here. Lots of stuff we covered in this interview, but the new Naked Lunch album due this year, I'm assuming there'll be some live dates to coincide with that release too.
We are hoping so. Okay, yeah. It's all been about getting it done, because you know, we want to make sure that it's as good as we want it to be, without going over the top. But and definitely looking at dates. I mean, we've spoken about Queensland. You know, the boys have got some time up, you know, on leave, up their sleeves. So we're definitely looking at that. East Coast, definitely Sydney, definitely Melbourne, and if we can, we'd love to hit through We'd love to go up around Lismore way because we've got friends up there who've been affected. And we've played there as the Hitmen, and love to go there. Gold Coast, Brizzy,
great.
Da. So yeah, as many as if anyone listening, you want a band, let me know. We're on Facebook.
Well, I do know that many of our listeners are fans of yours and are going to want to check this new album, Real Gone, out. See what I did there? Facebook.com/The Naked Lunch. And I do note that the band are also on Instagram at The Naked Lunch Australia. Mate, fantastic to chat with you today. Have known you for a long time. You are a part of a wonderful time period in Australian music, and it's been really, really rewarding to look over some of your story and to also learn more about the new album as well.
Man, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk about myself, I can tell you.
Mate, before you go, every guest gets to choose a song by an Australian band. Can be one of yours or something which is significant to you.
This was the hardest thing I've had
what
to
would
do
you like
all
to
bloody
choose
day,
and why?
you. All right, okay. It might sound a bit strange, but the reason I chose this song is because I couldn't choose between the bands. I thought that was a little hard for me. I was really wrestling with that. Then of Australian bands, I went back to who inspired me, and Greg McCanish from Skyhooks, one of the most underrated and wonderful bass players Australia's ever produced, and songwriter to boot, was a huge influence. So my song is what I think was, I think their crowning glory, which is Women in Uniform. I think it's got it all. Got it all. Got the rockin', got the vocals, got the melodies. It's just a song that I can listen to time and time again.
Wonderful, wonderful choice. Thank you again for your time today, Tony, and good luck with the new album, and please keep in touch.
Thank you so much, and hey, all the best to Cole as well, mate.
For Tony Robertson, and going back to 1978, that is Skyhooks with Women in Uniform. It was so great to catch up with the kid a few days back, and as I said earlier, to finally get him on the podcast and talk through some of his rock and roll story. The latter part of this year looks like a busy one for the Naked Lunch, who, as you heard from the interview with Tony, are set to release a new album which will hopefully coincide with some live gigs as well. Facebook.com/The Naked Lunch. That's the place you need to visit to find upcoming news on the new album. If Instagram be your thing, you can find them at The Naked Lunch Australia. A reminder that if the self-titled album from The Naked Lunch didn't appear on your radar a couple of years back, then I really do encourage you to pick yourself up a copy, as it comes highly recommended. Upbeat tunes with a ton of melody, big choruses, killer guitars and harmony vocals. Indeed. The Naked Lunch 1.bandcamp.com, and that's with the numeral 1. Head there, buy the record, and I reckon that will whet your rock and roll appetite before the new album is released in a couple of months' time. Folks, it's time to get out of here. AustralianRockShow@gmail.com. That is how you can reach us. You can listen in via Spotify, iTunes, or pretty much wherever you get your podcasts from. You can also listen in directly or download from our homepage at AustralianRockShow.com, and from there you can access all of the previous episodes as well. The wonderful photograph of the kid, which is accompanying this episode, is courtesy of Steve Teece. Like so many of us, Steve was a big music fan, a supporter of Australian music, particularly the Sydney scene, for many years. He photographed many bands, and he was also a follower of the Australian Rock Show. Sadly, Steve passed away earlier this year, and I hope that by using his shot of Tony, taken at a Tribesman gig at the Southern Cross Hotel in Surrey Hills, has him smiling down and in some small way helps to honour his memory. Let's close out with another track from The Naked Lunch, and if your volume isn't set to high, you need to do that right about now. Taken from their self-titled release from 2019, this is The Naked Lunch with another album highlight called Melting. Thank you once again for listening in, and until next time, this is Dennis, out.